Undercover for so long, what have I become? Empty, desolate, I waste away in the bitterness, in the broken dreams in which I always seek my identity that you stole from me. What a nice design, Dr. Frankenstein, indeterminate, unidentified, strangers for so long. Tell me where I belong. I'm not gonna fall in love.
You're Stephanie King.
I'm Stephanie King.
I'm Matt Dorn. Hey everybody, this is Matt. I'm doing my third podcast, and I've got one of my members here, Stephanie King.
Hi everyone.
And I'm actually on a fun trip going to meet my sperm donor biological dad. He lives in Kansas City, Missouri, and I'm traveling across the country with my family, and I've got my wife and 3 kids, and it's a big adventure. And I've reached out to all of you as many places as I could on DonorChildren groups, on Facebook, via email, and I snagged Stephanie tonight. We are in Pittsburgh, Pennsylvania, and I'm just so excited I get to meet Stephanie. We've communicated a little bit before, but not much, so we're just getting to know each other. And anyway, we're at this cool coffee brew house in Pittsburgh. It's getting a little late, but basically we just wanted to meet up and do an impromptu quick podcast as we get to know each other, and she was cool enough to put herself in front of a camera, so thanks, Stephanie.
Thank you for giving me the opportunity to tell my son.
Sure. So I think we'll just start out by, if you want to talk a little bit about how you found DonorChildren and what's your story, and I can go ahead and just kind of go through these questions from our first 2 podcasts about the donor conceived 8 stages towards self-actualization, and the first stage that every donor conceived person goes through, from my experience, is that everyone experiences an awakening. So if you want to share a little bit about how did you find out you were donor conceived, and what's your story? Just kind of gonna start from the beginning if you want to share as much as you would like.
Okay.
So
I found out, it was traumatic. I was 6 years old, and my mom and grandmas, we had gone to the mall and just, girls' day out.
Again, we adjusted this another thing in our low-tech podcast, but you were saying about the 90s and internet had just not even really existed.
Right.
So you had no records?
No records.
So no records, so no way to trace anything.
No. And at that point, my mom hadn't even given me the couple of pieces of information that I had later on. But it was funny how you said earlier about, the 2 awakenings where you find out you were donor conceived, but then there's that innate sense where something's different, that you don't look like everybody else, or you're different. You don't fit in. And I always had that feeling and really couldn't explain it. Fast forward, to maybe, 10 years ago or so. Yeah. I started pressing my mom for more information. Still weren't, the DNA tests were not advanced yet.
Right.
So I just still was just living in this world all by myself. And, when you tell somebody, I always kind of, got these weird looks oh, you're a test tube baby, or, you're kind of like a freak, or.
Made you feel different, but not in a good way.
Yeah.
You weren't like everyone else.
Right. And there was, up until actually this year, I've never even met in person any other donor conceived people. So you're actually the second person I've met.
That's so cool.
And it's very cool. It's very cool. And
yeah, because you can't really relate to everybody the same. Like we have a special identity in a way of existence in life that we instantly can connect in ways no one else can understand. So
it's pretty amazing.
Okay, so you had your awakening. You were 6 years old, but and then what was the 14? That's
14 is when I saw the TV program.
The TV program. So you understood then what it was.
Right.
So then what did you do? Did you talk to your mom about it at that point again, since you had a kind of a second awakening in a way?
She didn't.
I would say that was like your moment awakening, even though you had that sort of traumatic experience younger. That was kind of the time you really found out.
Right.
When you were 14 and just now going through puberty and young in high school.
Yeah.
Don't want to be different.
Right.
So did you tell any friends or?
I tried. I didn't go and talk to my mom about it. We didn't really have that kind of relationship. And I tried to talk to one of my high school friends, and, they just kind of were at a loss for words. They didn't know what to say to me, and it was just kind of like, oh, well, it doesn't really matter. Yeah. So I just kind of, it was always there, but I didn't talk about it. And so it wasn't until the donor sibling registry had signed up in, I guess it was like 2000-ish. And
that was like right when it was first started.
Yeah. I just, signed up. I put some information that I thought I knew and just waited.
Yeah.
No donor numbers, no nothing.
Right. So just where you were conceived.
Or where
you thought your mom told you?
Yeah.
Okay. So do you want to share where you were conceived so people know?
Yeah, sure.
Okay.
So my mom, the information that she did give to me, she said, I went to my OBGYN. His name was Dr. Alfred Sherman. And that's literally all the information I had, other than.
Where was he at?
Enola, Pennsylvania.
Okay. So Dr. Alfred Sherman in Enola, Pennsylvania. So anyone out there in Pennsylvania who looks like Stephanie King, send us an email at donorchildren@gmail.com. You can also join DonorChildren.com. It's a free social network for donor conceived community. And Stephanie's a member on there, and you can message her there as well privately. So when did you jumped on the DSR back when it first started in 2000, and then did you ever have any leads from that?
No.
Okay.
2014, a member, she contacted me, and she said, my donor who was her mother's OBGYN, was practicing in Pennsylvania. I don't know if we're related, but have you tested? And I said, no, I didn't even really know that it was possible at this point. And she said, yeah. So I did 23andMe. And we weren't sisters, and I didn't.
Do you want to share her name, or is this person? You're not sure she would want that. Well, is she a public figure?
Well, I mean, with her story, her name's Jacoba.
Okay.
But she's been, like I was telling you earlier, she's basically been a catalyst in, fighting to have her donors' license removed.
Okay, yeah. You said she was part of like a lawsuit or something, suing the clinic because of anonymity?
Because he was using his own donations.
The OBGYN was using his own sperm.
Right.
And that was based out of what state?
Indiana.
Okay. So Jacoba contacted you. Yeah. And she's this random person in Indiana. Why did she think you could be siblings? Were you from the same clinic, or she was just blind contacting people?
Well, because he practiced in Pennsylvania, and she found me on the registry. And actually, I got this email from her, and I thought it was spam at first.
Right.
And I thank goodness I didn't delete it. It's just because it changed my life.
Especially with the name like Jacoba, it's like, oh, that's a different name.
Yeah, and then she, so from there I tested. I immediately. She got me motivated to start searching again. And I'm like, okay, well, maybe I can get some answers. And because one thing that my mom did was try to plant seeds of doubt. she would tell me, oh, well, you really could be your dad's biological child. And
because that was a common thing they OBGYNs used to tell mothers was because they would mix sperm, right? Did they do that? Or did she just lie? Just she was delusional or something?
Well, probably some of that. But
okay. Or did they actually mix it? Because
No.
I know there are other times where that's what they did.
So it was common practice in the 70s when your patients would come in and have the procedure done. They would say, okay, we'll go home and, make love and forget this ever happened.
Right.
So,
it's a miracle. Wow.
Yeah. So everything was just based around secrecy and deception back then. And so she just maybe didn't want to come to terms with the fact that I was donor conceived.
Right.
And but it definitely it messed with me and psychologically, because it wasn't that, okay, well, if I'm my dad's biological child, I'm very okay with that. I just want to know,
right,
who am I really? And that's actually the name of my memoir that I'm writing is Who Am I?
Tell us a little bit about that. Let's wait for that because we're going to get to that.
Okay.
We're going to blow through these 8 stages before they kick us out of here. But we'll get to your memoir you're working on. But so the second stage after awakening is to be or not to be, kind of like in the Matrix, the red pill or the blue pill. Have you seen that movie?
It's been a long time.
Okay. Around 2000 or 1999. 1998. So yeah, like in the Matrix, the movie, Neo had to choose whether he wanted the red pill, which was truth, brutal reality, but the truth, or if he wanted the blue pill and he wanted to like live in this blissful ignorance and not really know the truth and just sort of accept the Matrix for what it was, which was just in the movie a program, an illusion. It wasn't reality. So a lot of people don't want to really deal with being donor conceived. They're afraid of what they have to process or what pain they might endure, or afraid they might cause other people pain. All kinds of reasons. But some people like myself, and it sounds like you, are strong or brave enough, or however you want to describe it, to sort of go seek out answers and face it on. So you took that red pill, like all right, pretty early on. You didn't have a period where you said in the beginning you kind of suppressed it, but that was because you didn't really know what it meant.
Right.
Yeah. Which is how I felt too as a kid. I had suppressed feelings because I didn't know what things meant. So right. I can relate to that.
It's like if somebody, said something to you in a foreign language.
Right.
And you're just like,
but once you knew what it was,
right.
But then you didn't have any resources available in 1994. So you just had to kind of wait till technology caught up.
I mean, it was really, I guess, all I could do. I think, maybe in the 70s there were clinics, but that wasn't my experience. I didn't have a donor number or anything,
right.
To go off of. Mm-hmm. And my mom and I didn't really have that kind of a relationship. She, like you said, maybe she was a little delusional, wanted to, not admit the truth, and she didn't want to assist me in any way.
So you just didn't talk about it with her, basically. Mm-hmm. And your social father, your dad that raised you, does he know that you know at this point?
No. So that's
still.
Well, he died.
He died. Okay. He died, but he never knew that you knew.
No, because he wasn't home the day the balloon popped, and he was not when I, had my actual awakening. He had already passed.
So you felt like there was a secret, like an elephant in the room, but he didn't know you knew about the elephant.
Yeah.
So did that change your perception of that relationship with him at all, or?
No, and I have like looking back on it now at 41 years old, we were very close. We had a great relationship. I'm grateful and blessed that I had him for the time that I did. And knowing what I know now and looking back, he was so grateful for the opportunity to be a father, that I truly believe that as I embarked on this, journey to find answers, I think he would have been right there with me trying to.
Okay. If he had known, and
yeah,
that's cool. All right. So, and so the third stage of donor conceived self-actualization is defining the relationships. So part of that is, well, now who's this guy that's been raising you your whole life? Like, what does he mean to you? And who is he? So like for me, I have a good dad like you, kind of in a lot of ways, and in other ways not like the most supportive or empathetic, but you know, it could be worse. But at the same time, as far as an identity standpoint, I consider him like a stepdad in terms of identity for me. And my biological father, I consider him to be like my father, even though he didn't raise me. But as I've gotten to know my biological father over the past year, I just identify so much with him because we're so similar. We think similarly, and we just have great conversations, and very much like him in a lot of ways, and my family, which I find fascinating. So for me, I've defined, instead of calling him my donor, I call him my father, or biological father, and then my dad that raised me, dad or stepdad, depending on maybe who I'm talking to.
Yeah.
So, so you defined the relation. So have you ever defined the relationships to yourself, or did you never think through it further than the accepted terminology of donor and dad or all that stuff, and then what they mean to you, like leading to the stage 4, which is what am I seeking?
Right.
Because if you define this anonymous man as simply a donor, then what do you need from him? Like what are you seeking?
Right.
So if he's just a donor, like, does that change what you want from the relationship?
Right.
Or would you like be open to a relationship that's deeper than just a picture and medical records and a coffee, or, you know what I mean?
Yes.
Like I'm driving across the country to meet my dad because I want to know him,
That's awesome.
you know? So, have you ever had that experience?
So, I think, right prior to me finding out I was donor conceived,
Right.
I lost my social father, who I was close to, and he died of diabetes. He was sick for 5 years, and it took me a long time to process that death. When he left, or when he died, I was close to him and his mother, my grandmother, and she died 5 years later. So I was just like dealing with all this tragedy.
Yeah.
And I never had a good relationship with my mom. So I think, secretly I always had like this fairy tale fantasy, like, oh, I have this family somewhere, and everything's going to be, when I find them, it's just going to be great and wonderful.
Right.
And last year, a year ago, September, I did find my biological father.
Really?
I did.
Wow.
And, it's DNA test after DNA test, and, kind of Facebooking. And
was it a quick thing, or was it like you had to, what was the match that led you to the start of the success? Like, was it a distant cousin or something?
It was a second cousin.
Second cousin.
Yeah.
Okay.
So
not too far off, but
no,
not super easy. You had to work a little.
So once I found him, I did some Facebook stalking. I found his daughter, and she put the rest of the puzzle together within about 24 to 48 hours.
Your half sister?
No, she's my cousin.
Your second cousin.
Yes.
Okay.
Yeah.
All right.
Or maybe third. I matched her father.
But she kind of made it her mission to help you find your father.
Yeah, I reached out to her.
And she was helpful.
Yeah. Oh, very helpful.
Cool.
Very helpful. And now
I had a similar experience with a cousin who was awesome. Yeah.
That's great. Yeah. And now we are pretty close. We meet regularly. She doesn't live that far from here. And we have so much in common. And it's cool. Amazing. Like,
what was it like when you first met her, and did you notice any features about yourself? Like, you have very beautiful blue eyes. Like, is that something that your mom had, or no?
This is, I'm glad you asked, because
that's one of the features I have for my dad and my sister too. Yeah. Very definitive blue eyes with a dark blue circle that we always have had compliments our whole life.
Yes.
Yeah.
But I never knew where they came from.
Right.
And
So did you see that in your cousin?
she doesn't have the blue eyes.
Okay.
But 95% of the rest of the family.
So you saw that, and that
Yeah.
meant something.
Yeah. Oh yeah.
Yeah.
And my biological father does have the blue eyes.
Yeah.
And it's not a fairy tale.
Yeah.
I have only emailed him because he was married at the time when he did the donation, and he never told anyone. So she's not real happy about it.
Wow.
And so
do you know how many times he went? Did he tell you? I mean,
this is kind of interesting, actually. Okay. And I do talk about this in the memoir that we're going to talk about later.
Yes.
But when I first found him, he said to me that Dr. Sherman had approached him and said, "Hey, this family really wants to have a baby, and you'd be a great match." And when he told me that, he wasn't like a regular sperm donor that was just, going for money. Like, he really just had no motive other than to help a family. I mean, it was a complete selfless act. So it was really special to me. And having a bachelor's in social work, and I just kind of always go back to these nonprofit activities. I just always want to help
you.
People.
Appreciated that his heart was to be altruistic.
Right.
And he thought he was doing a good thing.
Right, exactly. And so
he wasn't driving a Lamborghini.
No. And in fact, he said he received $20.
Right.
That's all he got. But randomly in February, I went on the Ancestry site. I have no idea why I went on there. And I saw that I had a close family match.
Oh, wow.
And I'm like, what is this? I knew that my donor had, he has 2 children, from his marriage.
Right.
And I actually did meet my half sister. But I hadn't found any other donor conceived siblings. So I see this relationship. I start breaking out all the charts, and I'm like, this guy's a half sibling. This is my brother. And so I, asked my donor, I'm like, hey, do you know this name?
Right.
Like, do you think that Dr. Sherman, used your donation more than once? And he kind of was like freaked out about it. He's like, I hope not. My wife's already so upset that there's you,
Jeez. And they had kids of their own that were naturally conceived.
Yes.
So you had how many? You had how many half siblings?
I have a half sister and a half brother from his marriage.
Okay.
So now I have this half brother. So we start talking.
So the half sister is not in contact.
We were, but now we're not.
Okay.
But probably it has to do with the family drama.
Right.
Okay. That it just doesn't have anything to do with me. It's,
right.
There's no winners, there's no losers. You know what I mean?
Okay.
So, but so I reach out to him, and I'm just kind of like tiptoeing around, and I'm like, hey, I'm just trying to figure out, how we're related. And he was like, I'm just trying to find out about ancestry. And I'm like, he said, how about you? And it's kind of, yeah, same thing. And I was like, you might want to talk to your parents. Like, let's just stop this.
Wow.
And he told me that he's 42. We're like exactly almost to the day, 13 months apart. And he's older.
Did it say a predicted sibling or uncle or something?
Close family to first cousin, but
didn't say what on Ancestry.
But the relation, the centimorgans, that number, there was no other possible relationship because
of your age.
Our age, and my donor doesn't have any siblings.
Right.
So he had to be.
Right.
And so he said, okay, well, just tell me, what is it, and I told him, and he said, well, it makes sense because I know my parents had trouble conceiving. But the fact that he was 13 months older than me, that was like, it immediately hit me. It's like, oh, I wasn't supposed to be. He said yes to him, not me. So
that's what you felt, because he thought he was only having one family.
Yeah.
So you were that's really interesting that you were like an oops baby for a sperm donor.
Yeah. Yeah.
Which is like the ultimate oops baby.
Yeah, definitely the ultimate oops baby. So then we still talk. But,
So is he? Do you feel like he's not open to a relationship because of his wife, or you guys have a relationship?
He would like to meet me, and I would like to meet him, and I definitely when I first contacted him, I'm like, okay, well, I want to know about you. I want to know your medical history, but if you're open to it, I'm open, to a relationship.
Cool.
But
You think his wife is, I guess?
Yeah. I mean, it's
That's too bad.
I mean, I guess she knows that he probably does email me or whatever, but she doesn't want to know about it.
Wow.
And here's the crazy thing. We're all he's originally from Western Pennsylvania. My mom's from Western Pennsylvania, but they both moved at some point to South Central Pennsylvania, in Harrisburg. And being in the military, my last duty station was Fort Bragg, North Carolina. When I found my donor, he had been living an hour north of me for about 3 years.
Wow.
The whole time.
Oh my gosh. But you didn't know him at the time.
I didn't know him. And I mean, I used to ride my motorcycle through the town that he lives in.
Wow.
And so, yeah. Crazy.
That's, it's weird. Mine's a little different because my dad had like a criminal period. And so he was actually in prison for a couple of years, but he was only an hour and a half away from me in South Florida when I was like 12, when I was having those questions. So I had the same kind of experience where, like, while I was having those questions at that age, he was only an hour and a half away. And I had that same sort of like epiphany too.
Yeah.
Yeah. Like, oh my gosh, I'm so close, but didn't even know it.
Right. Exactly.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Wow. So if you could say something to him, if he happens to ever watch this, do you want to say anything to him, or is there nothing you want to say right now?
I don't know. I want him to know that I'm very grateful. I'm very grateful for what he did, whether I was the ultimate oops baby or not. And I'm glad that I found him. And I know where I got my blue eyes from. I know more about myself, and
did you get any family history, medical, or how they got to America or anything like that? Your heritage?
Yeah, I mean, not so much
from the cousins. Maybe the cousins help you out with that.
Well, yes.
Okay.
But also, just beginning of August, I actually went to a family reunion.
No way.
My daughter and I went to a family reunion.
I would love that.
It was.
Sorry.
It was his distant family. Like, I don't even think he's been to this family reunion ever. But what was really cool about it, so the cousin that kind of helped me put the pieces together, she went to the family reunion, and my daughter went. And I was just around people that looked like me, that had blue eyes like me.
Wow.
At one point,
same stature? Or
same
sense of humor, anything like conversations?
And it was like,
you guys all like to do certain things or anything, like similar professions, or?
I don't know. We didn't really talk too much about professions, but it was just really getting to know each other, just, in
the moment, like conversations.
And it was it was like a picnic, so we were playing like beer bingo and stuff.
Nice.
And it was a really good time. They said, hey, come back next year. But at one point, they broke out a box of pictures and started talking about how, like, the men or anyone that's been in the military, most of them were in the Army. The majority of them were in the Army. So being in the Army, I'm like, oh, wow.
That is cool.
It's
It's weird how those kind of things they seem like they can be genetic. Like, I've seen shows on PBS with CeCe Moore, Finding Your Roots, and other shows about finding family. And like, one of those celebrities loved boxing, and him and his mom, like, or what was it? Yeah, he was like, his mom was adopted or something. And then he found his biological grandparents, his mom's parents, who gave her up for adoption. And they were like amateur boxers, like really actually boxed. And for me, like, I'm an aerospace engineer, and I found out like 5 generations of my family worked in engineering and aviation. And I love gardening, and I come from farming background and my family tree. So it's very interesting how all those things seem to almost be imprinted on our DNA. And it's nice to have those identifying factors in your family to help you feel like, oh, there's a reason I'm this way. I fit in somewhere.
Yeah. And that's true. Like, I started taking Taekwondo in January of this year. And turns out that my donor had done Taekwondo, and my cousin that I'm now close with takes the same style, or did take the same style. Her and my other cousins are all first degree black belts.
That's crazy.
Yeah. And I love true crime stories. So I love like ID Channel and Forensic Files and all that, Unsolved Mysteries.
Yeah.
And so does my donor. Like,
wow.
Yeah. Like we definitely have a lot in common. Yeah. And I think it's unfortunate that we can't meet.
Can't share that on a regular basis and at a deeper level.
Because there's
I hope that opens for you, and I have hope for you, you know.
Yeah, I hope so.
I just be persistent once in a while, maybe, if it feels okay, like just to reach out, maybe, because it took me 4 years to get my dad to finally open up to me. And also, 4 years, like I'd email him once a year. And then my grandma died last year in September. I didn't get to meet her, but it seems like after he got over that and some other things, and I got over all the emotional kind of trauma and processing I went through earlier on, like 4 years ago, I was in a better place. So we were just both in a better place, and we both were able to try again. Yours is a little more complicated because his wife might be part of the barrier. So it's hard to know.
You know, it's like, you know, some of us will never ever have answers.
Yeah.
And you know, that definitely breaks my heart. So I am, you know, fortunate that I have answers. And I mean, you know, it may be another 10 years, but maybe it'll happen in my lifetime. You know.
Yeah.
So I just hope you know, it does. I would love to meet him. I think it would be.
And he's nearby, like, you know.
Well, he's still in North Carolina, but I mean, if he was
not too far, yeah.
If he was willing to meet me, of course, you know, just like you're driving halfway across the country, like I would drive from here to California. Yeah, you know, it's that important. You know,
cool.
It is. But I just one thing that I came to the realization of is, you know, I was at that family reunion. They're breaking out photographs. They're like. Show, you know, say, oh, she looks like him, you know, she looks like her, you know, and so that it was really cool to see that. But at the same time, I still feel like an outsider.
Right.
It's the weirdest.
You're an illegitimate child.
Yeah. Like.
But to your cousins, who you're a little further apart from relation-wise, it's easier for them to accept you because there's not as much risk or cost in terms of the family.
Yeah, but they've been having this family reunion. My great grandfather started this reunion. Like, so it's been going on for, you know, decades. So they've been going to this reunion their whole life.
Wow.
And so my daughter and I were like, you know what, this isn't a family reunion. It's a family union. We've never met these people before, you know? So,
right.
You know, these are people that have grown up with each other.
So you felt welcome in that reunion?
I felt welcome, but I still felt like an outsider because, like, this is my family. I can identify who my ancestors are, but it's not.
You can't go to Christmas. You can't go to Thanksgiving.
Yeah, that kind of thing. And I didn't grow up knowing that.
With them.
Yeah.
You know, what's interesting for me is I had done so much research on my father and my paternal family that I had already driven across the country and met other relatives that I knew. And I had 300 pages of family history from my cousin, because 6 months before I contacted this cousin, my dad's first cousin, she had just completed 6 years of research, compiling 300 pages in color of our family history. Wow. So I had already met multiple cousins. I had a background report on him. I had reached out to my two half siblings from his second marriage. I've even located whom I believe is his brother that my grandparents gave up for adoption, I believe, when they were in high school, and he didn't even know about through an ancestry match. So it's weird. Yeah. So in a weird, almost creepy way, it's almost like I was part of the family because I knew people's names. I had met them. And then I started forming a relationship a few years later. And it almost feels natural in a way, but we still have time to catch up on.
Right.
But So maybe this is that time for you. Maybe it's time to get to know the extended relatives, and maybe someday, hopefully, maybe things will change a little for you.
Yeah.
I hope for
Yeah,
you.
yeah,
So
I hope so too. But
Yeah.
I mean, you know, if I die tomorrow, like
at least you know.
yeah,
Yeah.
like it just, you know, the
And you've seen his
uncertainty.
pictures. You
Oh yeah, yeah,
Okay.
And I look like him.
Really? That's
I
cool.
do. I definitely look like him.
Something I did too, because I have kids. I put pictures of my family in our house. Even though I haven't met my half siblings, I have their pictures hanging in my house, which is a little weird. But I have children, so I want them to know that they have an aunt and uncle.
Right.
So if one day I'm actually going to meet my brother on this trip. But 2 years ago, I didn't think that was going to be the case. But it's come around, and so now they're going to meet their uncle, but they've seen his picture, you know, so it's not as weird. But
Right. They're familiar with it.
yeah. So cool. Well, let's see what we can go on to next.
Okay.
So you're seeking obviously information, health history, any information. That's what you were seeking, and you said you were open to a relationship.
Right.
So the next step in your journey, you've kind of explained that you've put yourself out there, but the ball's in his court, essentially. And then, so beyond him, maybe, you know, I guess the only other thing you could do is like get to know your extended relatives, find out more about your family history if you want.
Right.
Get the genealogy books. There's always somebody in the family who has like the family genealogy, I've found out. And I've found that to be really interesting for me.
Yeah, I
But
actually know more relatives' names and, you know, the ancestry than
your mom's side.
Yeah.
Yeah, I'm a little bit the same way too.
I mean, I know my great-great-great-grandfather's name. You know, it's like, I don't know that on, you know, the other side. You know?
And what's bizarre for me is like we're coming on this trip to meet my dad for the first time, and my mom, you know, we left our dog at my mom's house, and she knows what we're doing, and it's just weird because she like went and grabbed like old photos from like 100 years ago or more of her family and started showing me, and it was almost like my mom's not very supportive either. So anytime I acknowledge my paternal side, my mom kind of minimizes it and tries to replace it with her family because she wants my identity to all be encompassed in her completely, so that the sort of the fantasy that they created to have a family and replace, you know, my stepdad be my dad, my biological father in every respect, and except for obviously blood, but in identity wise, it's interesting. I forget why I said that, but
well, I can absolutely relate to that because when I started, you know, to tell my mom that, you know, hey, you know, this is definite now. And I said, you know, I want to know medical history and things like that. And she started rattling off her medical history. And I'm like, I don't need your medical history. Like, you know, I can get that anytime I want, you know, like all I have to do is text you or call you. You know, this is a side of me.
You're only half her,
right,
in terms of DNA.
Right. And it's the same thing. Like she, you know, even though I genetically belong to somebody else, she has this fantasy in her head. You know, I mean, she would give my social father's medical history at doctor's appointments and things.
As if that was your medical history.
Yeah. So, you know, doctors thought, oh, well, she could have diabetes or, you know, all this and that. And
wow.
You know, I'm like one of the healthiest people ever. And come to find out, my great grandma lived to be 107.
Wow.
Yeah.
That's awesome.
That's very awesome. So,
it's good to know we got some good genes in the DC world, so you can do a lot of work.
Yeah. Yeah. And so you were kind of asking me, and, you know, my journey is, I mean, it's not full circle yet, but it's getting there. And so once I found that the half brother, that's when I decided to write the memoir, because.
So that's stage number 6. So after the next step, what will you do with what you find?
Yeah.
So now you found out all this info. Stage 7 is what's your story and your legacy. And now stage 8, which is kind of what you're about to get into, is how will I help others with what I now know? So you've gone through all these 8 stages, it sounds like, and now you're ready to help others.
Yeah.
And so tell us about your memoir, and when did that start, and when will it be ready, and do you know the name of it or anything?
Oh, yeah. So
Okay.
the name of my memoir is Who Am I? And it's a memoir of a donor conceived person. And I finished
Stephanie King.
by Stephanie King.
All right.
And I finished the 3rd draft. So it's just a matter of, grammatical errors, fixing that, and, maybe adding some things or changing some things.
Yeah.
But
You have to find a publisher, or you self-publishing, or where are you going to be promoting it so we can go buy it?
Well, I will definitely let you know when I have all that information, but I actually was doing an Army thing, and I was working with a civilian, and she's a publisher. And there was another soldier there that's an editor. So I have connections. So, I want to get it out as soon as possible.
Okay.
But, writing that story just, not only am I telling my story so that other people know that they're not alone, but I've been led. Like, I want to start a nonprofit. I want to get out there. I want to meet other people in the community. I mean, when I got the answers that I was looking for so long, it was like the most liberating feeling.
So when did you decide you wanted to do the memoir? What was the trigger, the catalyst for you writing a book?
When I found my half brother.
Okay.
That was it. I was like, I need to write a book. I need to get this in it.
And you actually had contact, or you just found out you had one, or when you met him in person?
No. We didn't meet in person.
Oh.
I found him on Ancestry.
Your DC half brother,
yes.
the one that was.
Yeah, because I'm the oops.
Right.
But yeah, I mean, it was just like that point. Like, I need to tell my story. Like this, I need my story. While it's unique to me, it's probably not, far from, other people's stories.
So it's called Who Am I?
Who Am I?
Who Am I? Cool. So if you guys identify with anything Stephanie shared in her story, keep an eye out for that. We'll make sure we let you guys know when it's ready.
Yeah, hopefully soon.
Yeah, that's awesome. Wow. Well, thanks for sharing all that in your story.
Thank you for giving me the opportunity. It's been great.
And it's cool we got to meet on this trip.
Yeah.
I hope anybody else, if I ever do a shout out, if I'm around the country, or if you guys are ever in Florida, let me know. That's where I live. But I'd love to meet up with anybody else. Also, make sure you check out the meetup groups on DonorChildren, because there are meetup groups all over the country, actually the world, that you can join. That makes it easier for people to connect. You can also search for people based on their location. Just put in the keyword and see if you can find some people on DonorChildren that are in your area and meet up. Because Stephanie told me that I'm the second person she's ever met who's donor conceived. I don't even remember how many I've met now, because I meet a lot of people, but in person I haven't met that many. So it's still, something. Every time it happens, it's cool.
Yeah.
You know.
If you're in Pittsburgh, look me up.
All right,
I'd love to meet
she's
you.
in Pittsburgh, and she wants to hang out. So check her out on DonorChildren. And anyway, is there anything else you want to chat about, or you think? I don't know.
I mean, I just look forward to getting more involved in the community. And when I finish my PhD, one of the things I want to do is start a nonprofit, and I want to.
What do you want to do with your nonprofit?
I want to get an RV, and I want to go to the different cities and gather donor conceived people together, because I think human interaction is very important. And I think that it's great. Like this is great that we got to meet, and so that's important. Also because like we talked about earlier, we are an underrepresented population. And so we need to have a voice, and I want to be a voice, and awesome.
So you want to rally the troops?
I want to rally the troops. Yeah, I mean,
I love it. Yeah. You're the Army girl on the ground rallying the troops.
Yes.
All right.
Yes.
Well, we've actually talked about doing some big healing retreats. Myself, Alana Newman, and other people that I work with who are doing a lot. And we've thought about maybe having a healing retreat, thought about like picking a location that's easy to get to. So if you guys are interested in that, comment on this video, send us a message, DonorChildren@gmail.com. Give us some feedback if you have any ideas, or if you would like to help out with Stephanie's idea as a nonprofit, or if you would like to support it with your funding. Nonprofits always need funding, especially to get started. So we've got an Army, what's your rank?
Major.
We've got an Army major, and I have a feeling that she'll work her butt off. So if you believe in what we're doing, come help us out. And tell us a little bit about you have a daughter,
Yes.
right? So tell us, you shared with me a little bit about what's her experience with her mom being donor conceived. What's her take on it?
So growing up, I didn't have answers. Like,
Has she ever asked you about her grandparents or anything like that, or she's not quite there yet? Or
not that she really asked a lot of questions, but I share with her. I've shared with her, the DNA tests, and obviously when I found my donor, and so it's she's excited about it.
Yeah.
She went to the family reunion.
Oh, cool.
And they welcomed her just the same.
That's awesome.
So it's not, she's not going through the same feelings, because it's not her direct situation, but she's been on the journey as a passenger.
Right. Yeah.
So
that's
cool. She's been a good support.
That's good. Good.
Yeah.
This was fun. Well, we just took a little break, but we're back. But wanted to say thanks again, Stephanie. And anyway, next leg of my trip, I'll be in, where am I going? St. Louis, and then Kansas City, and then Memphis, and then maybe Destin, Florida. And then I live in Central Florida. So if anybody is ever in Central Florida for Disney World or the beaches or anywhere in Florida, let me know. But I've really enjoyed getting to know you through this. And thanks for being so willing on first meeting you and just spur of the moment being willing to go on a podcast.
Yeah.
So
we have to share our story, because if we don't talk about it, others aren't going to know. They're going to be maybe isolated. I don't want other people to go through what I went through for so many years. It doesn't have to be like that.
Right.
We are out there in the world, and there's lots of us that we want to meet each other. We want to build relationships. We want to build a community.
For sure.
So,
and if anybody is a member in DonorChildren, wants to be part of the podcast, just send me an email at DonorChildren@gmail.com, and we'll schedule a time to do a video chat, and love to hear your story. Just if you want to be brave and come out, we'll put you up on YouTube, and the more the merrier, because like Stephanie's saying, we need to build our demographic, represent who we are and what we care about, and share our stories. And hopefully as a community, we can start to impact the world, impact legislation, impact academic research, psychology. Every counselor I've ever gone to has never met another DC person. Every minister I've ever spoken to has never met another DC person. So no one knows how to respond to these situations. So all we have is each other until we can, let the world see us. So thanks a lot, Stephanie.
yeah, thank you. It's been great.
Thanks.
Strangers for so long, tell me where I belong. I'm not gonna fall in line. No, I'm not gonna wait this right. What if I knew but it numbs me not to know. Yeah, it numbs me, it haunts me in the mirrors, in the diaries, all the compliments, the accomplishments never weighed as much as the silence of uncertainty for so